Welcome to Rising Up for Justice, a special weekly series presented by Rising Up with Sonali, an independently produced, subscriber-supported program syndicated to radio stations, free speech TV, and podcast platforms. I'm SonaliKolhatkar, host and executive producer. Our nation and our world are overrun by billionaires and bigots, but they are few and we are many. On this series, exclusive to subscribers of Rising Up with Sonali and viewers of Free Speech TV, we'll hear from change makers in the movements for social justice. And we'll dig into the nuts and bolts of values, strategies, tactics, narratives, and building power. This week on Rising Up for Justice, I'm joined by Jeannette Huezo, Executive Director and Senior Popular Educator at United for a Fair Economy. Jeanette, who is originally from El Salvador, has led transformative work on racial and economic justice, popular education, language justice, and healing for liberation since 2001. Through her leadership and organizing, she's empowered immigrants, women, workers, Black communities, Indigenous communities, and other communities of color to build collective power and shape a more just and equitable society. Welcome to the program, Jeanette.
Hi, Sonali. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So first, tell me a little bit about United for a Fair Economy itself. What is the organization's main goals, and how do you go about, putting them together? How do you go about achieving those goals?
UFE has 32 years of existence, and from the beginning, we started working around the economic inequality issues that has been affecting everyone. And how we are doing our main goal is support social movement that have been working for racial and economic justice. We have been doing this since the beginning, creating some political economic analysis for the people to understand how the system is working for some people and for others it's not. Also, we are doing a lot of supporting on leadership development, supporting network and coalitions. We are doing a lot of that work that we believe that people need to speak each other. And sometimes they are doing the same work, but they are not working together. We are doing that. In that way, they can really build power together. Also, we are doing some work on changing the narrative that is not working. It's like we are listening something, but we are living something different. And that was one of the reasons that the organization born to support also people that are affecting the most with the economic system that we are having.
And how long ago was United for a Fair Economy founded again?
Was founded in 1994.
Wow. So 1994 was a time that we can look back and think, compared to now, the economy was, I think, better. We've gotten into a situation where things have gotten worse and worse. How severe is the problem? And what do you understand to be a fair economy? Clearly, it is not what we have now.
Oh, no. When the organization started, we're a group of individuals that they were seeing the trends that is coming up. The rich start getting richer, and the gap start increasing. So that was one of the reasons that they said, we need to figure out the way that people stay aware, because this is a plan that's starting right now, and actually starting in the 70s, 79, something like that, something that I have been learning, and was a plan to start increasing the economic inequality. How is doing that? More low wage jobs, more insecurity, less basic services for poor people or for low wage workers, more attack to unionizing. The unions in the past were strong and was one way to support and defending the workers' rights. So all of the things were starting, we start seeing by then also the CEO pay that increasing incredible, and the workers still getting low wages and hard to find out decent job with decent benefits that they can support their own families. That was when they were putting it together. I wasn't part of that because I became at UFE in 2001. But that the history that I know and that I hear and continuing right now is, by then still we're very clear middle class. Right now, you see the data, you see the chart. They're no middle class. You're the
So the
poor.
a fair economy you would define as was one where resources are just better distributed. The gap between rich and poor is not so high. There's just a more equitable distribution of money.
That's the way that we believe. A fair economy has to be equitable for everyone, having the same opportunities, jobs with good wages, living wages, because right now is not the case.
When we think about what it takes to create such an economy, how does that work? So I know that your organization works with groups to support their unionizing efforts. Is it a matter of strengthening labor power? Is that just sort of one of the ways? Is it also a matter of regulating businesses, taxing corporations? There's so many different ways to achieve a fair economy that seem really obvious for most Americans, but for some reason politicians seem to want to do the opposite. So what are the ways in which, in the concrete ways in which UFE tries to fight for a fair economy?
Well, we believe in the social movement. So that's why this is one of our main goals, support organizations that are building the social movement. How we are doing it is like creating spaces of dialogue, creating spaces to sharing stories, because data is so important. But without a story behind, it's not making any sense. Also, there are a lot of information that is not available to people, how they will understand it. What we do at UFE is we take those complicated numbers or statistic or data and make it in a way that regular people understand.
And that's part of the narrative work that you also do.
Exactly. So
Right.
when people understand that, are more able to organize and fighting for the right. When I'm talking about leadership development, I know almost everybody are talking about leadership development, which is important. What is the difference that we are doing at UFE? We are creating the critical thinking that is missing in these days. People are not taking their own, thinking, their own ideas, their gut. They are like seeing something in Facebook and TikTok and X, and they believe it. They are not questioning anymore because we have been losing that. That practice to thinking is like, well, that make no sense, right? If they are saying this, but I see something else, that I'm living something else. That's the difference, when we are developing that critical thinking. So, yes, when people are aware of what is going on in their life, in their community, in their workplace, are more likely to getting together, working together, and looking for those alternatives.
Right. I mean, I guess
Necessarily.
I'm thinking about when Republicans claim that giving tax breaks to billionaires is an important criteria for them or important issue for them, and then some of their supporters who are below the poverty line rise up to defend tax breaks for billionaires as if it somehow benefits them, which is just kind of really bizarre. I'm wondering if you also work on immigrant rights. You're from El Salvador. I'm an immigrant as well. For me, immigrant rights are very much tied to resources. But how do you address, especially on the narrative front, immigrants and their right to a fair economy at a time when it's so easy, both for media and politicians, to demonize immigrants as, taking away jobs from Americans, as if they're the reason why American citizens are struggling?
Yes, definitely. Through the history of UFE, we start working, with the the income and the wealth and how it was distributed, taking some time to connecting with race. But we get there, and then making the intersectionality with gender, immigration, work, and everything else. So on immigration, I'm very proud to be a Salvadorian. I left my country 37 years ago for political reason. That this country was spending $1 million a day to support the civil war in my country. That $1 million was coming from the taxes and not necessarily for the rich people. That's narrative, that story is not telling to the people. Different waves of immigrant has been coming for a different reason. But how we are talking about it with the immigrant is like what was going on in your country when you decide to come to this country. What is the international policies that have been made from here that is affecting your country and coming to here?
So looking at immigration globally.
Exactly. And there one more thing that I will like to share with you is like probably 10 years ago, I read one economist were saying, if in one society there are 1,000, immigrants undocumented in one year, that is a problem. But when there are 11 million, that's a big business. So, unfortunately, this country has been built based off a lot of exploitation, and it's a very dark history that this country has, and it's nothing new. And what is going on right now, especially with immigration, is a lot of people that has been for a long, long time that they put it in together all their forces of work when they were young. Now they are getting old, so they are pushing back to going back to their countries, and somehow they're gonna making sure that new blood are coming more younger and continuing their circle, to having young people to do the work for a cheap wages. So, but that is there. Uh, this is story that we are listening in the work that we are doing. It's we just finished a training for trainers. This is one of the our trademark that we have. That is an intensive 4 days, and we have one worker in a chicken factory, and I just can't believe it. What he was telling us, how many chicken they have to like pull it and put it in one place for a minute, and in North Carolina making $7.25 per hour, and it's like for me, I'm still processing that, picturing, him. He was showing us the exercise, basically an exercise. He was a short guy. He wasn't a tall guy. That sometimes he has to jump and put it in some line or something like that. And it's like this work is necessary to bring the food to the table. Why is these people are in at risk? Why they are considered criminals?
I want to
And we can go on and on in all different industries.
I want to ask you, Jeanette, what is the form that the narrative work takes at United for a Fair Economy? Are you, posting graphics on social media or creating documentaries? I imagine that part of the trainings that you were just talking about involve training on being able to, maybe media literacy or knowing how to talk about economic justice issues in easy to understand fashion? What form does your narrative work take?
Well, number one is the one-to-one. It's so important. And we
So
understand,
old-fashioned conversations.
yes. As much as possible, we are traveling around the country. We are locally in Boston, but we are also in North Carolina and we are in Alabama. So we connect with the people to listening their stories and facilitating, because we use our popular economic education. At the beginning of this organization were a lot of creative actions that they were using to educate people. And they put it in together a curriculum using the popular education, I think, was in the Eastern Hemisphere. But when I became part of UFE, since I was learning and using the popular education in Latin America, that is the one that we have been incorporating, which there's no such thing like expert in those settings. Everyone is an expert in their own experience, in their own life. And when you are listening other stories, you're connecting yourself. Oh, that's happened to me. Or, oh, I know somebody else. Or somebody in my own family. So it's connecting. So through our methodology, we have different workshops and training guides. It's in our website. It's for free. Anybody can download it. It is taking you step by step how you can do the activities. We always recommend it to come to one of our workshop, and you can see it and how we are doing it. And then, but if you are good facilitator, you can easily use it. So we have in a different way, but the heart of our narrative is the analysis of the economic inequality. Once you got that,
let's lean into that a little bit more in terms of how the government actually spends our tax dollars, and even for that matter, collects our tax dollars, right? Who are we taxing? How are we spending those taxes? When President Trump is talking about the war on Iran, where he is spending billions of our tax dollars, when one reporter asked him during his China trip what he thinks about the fact that gas prices are rising and Americans are struggling, he said, I don't think about that. He literally said, I don't think about Americans' financial situation. He's also said that, we can't be spending money on things like Medicaid because we have to fight this war. And so government priorities on spending are really important. Is that also an area of focus for UFE?
Oh, yeah. Everything that is economic, that's what it is. Like I was mentioning, our heart of the work is the growing economic inequality workshop, where we have there. One of the reasons that the increasing of the gap is the tax system, period. But how many people know how that works? How many people know what is paid by taxes and what is not? How you're spending your money on your taxes. It's not necessarily only the income tax, the sales tax, the property tax. There are many other taxes that who is paying that is everybody else except the top 1%. And I think that is another work that we do. And it's very interesting to coming in a setting of leaders, and they have no idea how the tax system works. That they don't know that it's a regressive, progressive, flat. They have they don't even sometimes don't know that there are 3 different layers in the government: the federal, the state, the local. All of them have different taxes. And when people start thinking about it, they are more likely pushing those legislators, the politician, and making a call. And they say, hey, you are in my district, I don't like this. But people need to know how that works. And we have one specific workshop that is work and the economy, where we are putting together how much money just one, all of those very sophisticated arms that they are using cost. and how much that money can pay in teachers for a year with a full salary, with many other things, how we can support Medicaid, Medicare, SNAPs, all of the kind of the stuff. And people understand in that way. Probably the numbers is, they glaze over, when they see it. But when they made the connection, okay, this helicopter new one, this is the value versus this is the amount of teachers that we can pay for a year, nurses that we can increase their wages.
Right,
all
those
of the
equations are really important to say. For one fighter jet, we could fund Medicaid for a year for this many states, right? And that's so helpful.
Yeah. So that's how we are doing our work. It's like making easier for people to understand that in the way where we are living right now is not happen because God wants or because of a mistake. No, it's a plan made it, and we need to understand that, and also making sure people have this information and getting connected, and then it's more likely to fighting for those changes that is needed. But it's a lot of work, and like I said, the ideal is doing it in person, but also we have been able to do a lot virtually. The other thing that is important that I don't want to miss it is that we believe in language justice. There, we have been imposed the English language because we live here, but there are so many languages in this country that are not able to be in the same table and sharing their stories and their dream and their fight and their pain. So we as a UFE are highly committed to providing that. Unfortunately, for the resources right now, we are the only language that we are doing is Spanish. But in our training and our workshop is always language justice providing. Everyone that is bilingual doesn't need to wear headset. Everybody that speak only one language using their headset. So either if the facilitator is speaking in English, the Spanish speaker are listening at the same time, the person presentation. And it's so beautiful, people are that have been coming and having for first time the experience they have been seeing that it's possible to build a movement with other people that are not having the same language that they have. And the other part that we are doing also is healing for liberation. Working in this moment in time, and I think in general, if as an organizer, as an activist, as a leader, just as a person, you don't have the time to really release all the trauma that you have been having because you lose the job, because the money is not enough, because you don't have a house, or the house is the rent is getting high. If you are a homeowner but not really because still owned by the bank and the interest is growing, that's a lot of traumas that people need to figure it out how this economy is draining them and how they can release it. So that's something else that when we are giving all the bad news about how the economy is working and how they are sharing, yeah, I have been seeing this more and more in my community. Yeah, I'm struggling, with my paycheck to finish the 2 weeks, to getting pay all my bills. How they can release that, how they can connecting how the economy is affecting myself, but how I can take care of myself to continuing in that situation is not affecting me more.
And where can people find out more about your work? Give out a website and social media links. How can people support it and join it? Is it membership-based, or is there a newsletter they can sign up for?
Oh, yes. We are not a membership organization, but we have our social media is there, our Facebook. We inviting people to finding us and like us. We have our website, www.faireconomy.org. And I think, donate to our organization is a good way to support the work that we have been doing. And we are expecting continuing doing for a long time until we look in the changes that we need. Yes, and we have also a lot of information in the website. You can find out infographics. We have our newsletter every month where we are having all, the articles and blog posts from staff, but also from people that participating in one way or another in our workshops. And the fun way to see the numbers, we use infographics, so you can find all of that in the website, and it's free. You can download for free, but we're also happy to receive donations.
Right, especially these days as our economy gets worse and worse. Even nonprofit organizations dealing with the fair economy, I imagine, are struggling to ensure that they have the funds they need. Well, Jeanette, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sonali.
My guest has been Jeannette Huezo, Executive Director and Senior Popular Educator at the United for a Fair Economy. This is Rising Up for Justice, and I'm SonaliKolhatkar, host and executive producer of this new weekly half-hour series exclusive to viewers of Free Speech TV and subscribers of my long-standing program, Rising Up with Sonali. You can find out more at risingupwithsonali.com.